Welcome back to another video. This is my 2008 N54 powered BMW E92. Today we're going to be removing the intake manifold and we're going to be cleaning out the intake valves and walnut blasting them. This is what yours probably look like, and this is what it'll look like after you're all done. The tools you're going to need is this sand blaster from Harbor Freight, and then you're also going to need blasting media, and I picked this up from Harbor Freight also. Make sure it's walnut shells and make sure it's fine, not coarse. Lastly, you're going to need a vacuum adapter tool. This fits right into the intake port and it makes for a cleaner job. I got mine on Amazon, but you can also get yours on eBay. So let's go ahead and get started. First, remove the engine cover, remove the C-clip holding the charge pipe, unplug the sensor on the charge pipe and on top of the intake manifold. Loosen the charge pipe. Using an 11mm socket, you can remove the nuts holding on the intake manifold. On the bottom of the throttle body, there is a connector. Push the little pin. It comes disconnected. On the side of the throttle body there is a vacuum line. Pinch the sides of it and it'll come out. Unplug your oil pressure switch, and at this point you should be able to disconnect your charge pipe and remove your intake manifold. But I'm going to remove the studs in mine to make removing the intake manifold easier, but this is not necessary. And now we can inspect the intake valves. It definitely looks a little gunked up. So they're all a little bit gunky. Cylinders 1 and 6 are usually the worst. Don't forget to remove the charge pipe and put a rag inside the intercooler piping. That way no media falls inside the intercooler. And I put this garbage bag here to keep things clean. But now it's time to do some actual walnut blasting. I've got this push button switch. I've got one end attached to the positive on the battery, the other end attached to the plug inside the starter. Make sure the transmission is in neutral. And then push this button here. And it spins over the motor. What we're looking for is the valve to be closed. See, you see they're fully closed. Here's an example of an open valve and a closed valve.
We're closed. For cleaning.
So you just need to start in one area, make sure it's fully closed, and then you can walnut blast that. You don't want to walnut blast one that's open, fill the cylinder with walnut media. So let's get started. I'm using painter's tape to cover the open valves, and I'm also going back and forth between using the vacuum adapter or no adapter and just kind of spraying it in there. Harbor Freight also sells a skinny vacuum adapter. I used some extra steel pipe to make the end of the sand blaster gun so it fits in this vacuum adapter. Using a pick or a screwdriver can really help get some of the bigger chunks off. This is definitely a messy job, so you'll want to make sure to spend some time cleaning once you're all done. And make sure you're wearing proper eye protection. Once you're satisfied with the job, you can remove the painter's tape, click over the starter, and then work on the other intake valves. Don't forget to apply tape to the other valves that are open. And this is our end result. Make sure whenever you're clicking your starter over, your keys are nowhere near the inside of your car, or else you might make a mistake like this.
At first, it seemed like I made a mistake.
And now that you're all done, it's time to take the vacuum cleaner and clean up all of the engine bay. Media anywhere, so I would go through and vacuum everything really nicely. Using compressed air and the vacuum cleaner will make this process easier. And I cover up the intake valves one more time, that way no media gets blown inside the intake valves. Now that we've got the intake manifold ports cleaned off, we're going to install the intake manifold. We will put it on here and then we will install the studs, torque those down, and then install the actual nuts. Before you do this, you definitely want to install new intake manifold gaskets.
I want you to install this little baby right about there.
Next, we need to install this vacuum line into the throttle body. And then there will be the throttle body plug right here. And don't forget to plug in the map sensor on top of the intake manifold. This is the sensor that is used to measure vacuum, and also plug in the map sensor that is on the charge pipe. And that's a sensor that actually measures your actual boost. Before you do the charge pipe, you want to bolt in the intake manifold. That way it's all bolted on nice and straight, and then you can do the charge pipe. Okay, and then you've got the nuts that you need to put on the intake manifold. So you can go ahead and get that started. Try not to drop anything. They can be difficult to find under the intake manifold. Start in the middle and work your way out. Get them all snugged up a little bit, and then you can actually do your final torquing sequence. You don't have to worry about losing this socket. It's an 11 millimeter. If it was a 10, I would say definitely be careful not to drop it because you will lose it. But since it's not a 10, we all know 10s are the ones that get lost. The intake manifold gets torqued down to 15 Newton meters. And then I always do it once more.
And so it shall be once more!
And now it's time to install the charge pipe. Make sure you got this O-ring inside here. If you haven't changed it out, I definitely would change it. And always expect a little bit of oil to be inside the charge pipe. If you haven't cleaned off the sensor, you can clean this off now. Good opportunity. So it wiggles on, and then you take your clip, snaps on, holds it on. Even with it clipped on, charge pipe can still wiggle around a little bit. That's normal. Tighten up your hose clamp, plug in your other sensor here, and then plug in the sensor up top. Don't forget to plug in your blow-off valve. Don't forget to plug in the sensor on top of your oil filter housing. And then you can get ready to start her up, test fire, see how she runs.
Test our abilities.